Welcome to Calm Sleepy Tales. I'm so glad you are here for tonight's story, which takes us back to Widdersham. This tale is a whimsical, cosy story titled Mend Mutter Mondays at Tog Hem, which immerses listeners into the heart of Widdersham's community, centred around Merrin Hemslow, her magical seamstress ways, and the beloved tradition of Mend Mutter Mondays. First, let's begin by letting go of the day and enjoying this moment of stillness. Find a comfortable position, let your head rest, and close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath in and gently exhale. With each breath, imagine the air around you becoming softer, warmer, more peaceful. As you breathe, feel the tension in your jaw, your forehead, and your back begin to melt away. Let your hands rest. Let your feet soften. Imagine the worries of the day slowly dissolving, like mist in morning sunlight, drifting away, leaving only peace behind. You are safe. You are warm. You are exactly where you need to be. Let yourself surrender to this comfort, and when you're ready, we'll begin tonight's story. In the town of Widdersham, where the cobblestones whispered if your pockets were honest, and the clock tower ticked with a mind of its own, Monday evenings brought with them a very particular sort of magic. Not the spellbook kind, mind you, but the quieter sort, the mending of things frayed, both cloth and heart. This enchantment could be found tucked beneath a slate blue awning with a brass stitched sign that read Tog Hem, tailored wonders and weathered whimsy. It was a shop full of wooden hangers, bearing cloaks like storybook shadows, of mannequins wearing things that rustled like secrets, of drawers filled with buttons that may have remembered the coats they once belonged to. And presiding over it all was Merrin Hemslow. Merrin was the kind of woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a story stitched into the lining of an old traveller's cloak. Her spectacles were always perched on her head, though she swore she couldn't see a thing without them. And she wore shawls that changed colour with the season's mood. Her fingers were calloused but graceful, with one ring on each hand, each gifted by a past customer with a story attached. People said her hair, which was coiled into silver braids that shimmered with strands of starlight on especially clear nights, knew secrets. But what Merrin was best known for, aside from her Equinox Cloaks gifted to someone about to begin a new chapter with an uncanny intuition, was her tradition of Mend Mutter Mondays. Every Monday evening, just after the clock tower struck 6, the soft bell above the shop would jingle to welcome Widdersham's folk. No invitations were needed. The light from Tog Hem's windows would spill out onto the cobblestones like warm tea, and the scent of fabric and rosehip biscuits would pull people in like moths to a particularly cosy flame. This Monday, like all others, began with the creak of the shop's front door, the soft jingle of the bell, and the shuffle of boots on the thick patchwork rug. "Evening, Merrin," came the hearty voice of Hester Bramble, the ironmonger's wife, carrying a thick canvas apron with a rather dramatic tear across its front. "Caught it on the latch of the back gate," Hester explained, dropping the apron on the mending table with a thump. "Thought I'd patch it, but the hole only grew teeth." Merrin chuckled. "It's a spirited apron. We'll talk it down." Next came Finlay Venn, the youngest of the Venn clockmaking clan, with a cardigan that had lost every one of its buttons except the top two. "I like the draft," he admitted sheepishly, "but the owls don't." The bell jingled again. In shuffled Winnie Thimble, who ran the post office and always brought her mending in a tin biscuit box, each item folded like a letter. "My good skirt's gone all thin at the hem," she whispered. "I think it's been listening to gossip through the floorboards." "And what's the town whispering about this week?" Merrin asked, already threading her needle. Winnie's eyes sparkled. "Well, they say young Lilibet's been seen sneaking off to the Misty Teacup with someone tall and dreadfully handsome, possibly a botanist." Gasps echoed from around the room. "Not a botanist!" exclaimed Hester. "We haven't had one of those since the time the daffodils got into the council meeting." Merrin shook her head with a smile, pulling the biscuit tin closer. The smell of rosehip and lavender filled the air as she passed the treats around. "Let's get stitching," she said, and muttering, of course. The evening warmed into a gentle hum of chatter and thread. Etienne Leclerc, from the chocolatier down the lane, had brought a silk scarf with chocolate stains she swore were accidental, though they smelled delightfully of dark raspberry truffle. "I caused them while taste testing a new recipe," she said, slyly offering a small paper box to everyone at the table. "You know, research." Across from her, Miss Thorne from the second chapter bookshop nodded gravely as she accepted one. "Memory truffles," she said. "I remember these. They remind me of a Tuesday I once lost in Paris." Nobody questioned it. Miss Thorne's past was a gently fogged window, curiously shaped but never quite clear. Even Bryony Moss, the flower seller from Flora and Fauna, joined them, brushing leaves from her shawl. She brought a gardening apron with pockets full of petals. "Some of the hydrangeas are sulking," she sighed, handing over the apron. "They want tea with more honey and less gossip." "Don't we all?" Merrin muttered, delicately sewing a bee-shaped patch over a tear that looked suspiciously like a nibble. As the night deepened, the mending pile shrunk and the murmurs grew warmer. That's when the subject turned, as it always did eventually, to Merrin's cloaks. "You've never told us how you know," said Finlay, one eye squinting behind a monocle that wasn't actually helping. "You pick someone every equinox, always the right person. How?" Merrin only smiled, reaching for a fresh spool of thread. "The fabric speaks," she said simply. Winnie narrowed her eyes. "The thread?" No, dear, the fabric. The threads only carry the message. Everyone nodded like they understood, which they didn't, but accepted nonetheless. It was at that moment the bell jingled once more, and in stepped a young girl none of them had seen before. She looked to be about 10, with a green satchel too big for her, shoes slightly too small, and eyes full of both shyness and sparkle. I heard there's a place to fix things, she said, holding out a beloved but fraying stuffed rabbit. Merrin's face softened. Well then, she said, clearing a space beside her, you're in the right place. The girl, Ember was her name, climbed onto the stool, eyes wide as she looked around the room. I'm staying with my aunt, she offered. My mum's. She had to go somewhere. A quiet pause. Merrin placed a hand over Ember's and the rabbit's ears simultaneously, whispering something too soft for anyone to catch. Then she began to stitch. The other townsfolk kept talking, now in gentler tones. Hester argued over the tea strength. Miss Thorne mused about words that had fallen out of fashion, and Etienne handed Ember a soft sugar blossom chocolate on account of bravery. The room pulsed with comfort and familiarity, like a worn quilt pulled up to your chin on a rainy afternoon. And when Merrin finally tied off the final stitch on the rabbit's paw, she reached into a drawer and pulled out something wrapped in tissue. It was a cloak, small, lined with soft mossy velvet, and a hood embroidered with twinkling stars. It's nearly the equinox, she said, offering the cloak to Ember, and I believe you're starting something new. Ember's eyes welled up. How did you? But Merrin only smiled, brushing lint from the cloak's collar. The fabric told me. The evening wound down like a lullaby. One by one, the townsfolk gathered their patched cardigans, rehemmed skirts, unripped aprons, and stitched stories, heading back into the Widdersham night, their hearts just a little lighter. Merrin stayed behind, of course, tidying stray threads and refilling her biscuit tin. Ember had fallen asleep beneath a quilt near the fitting curtain, the cloak curled around her shoulders like a promise. As the clock tower struck 10, Merrin looked towards the back of the shop, where an old mirror stood, half framed in ivy. For a moment it shimmered, not with her reflection, but a flicker of something else, a future, a memory, a possibility. She nodded once, then she turned off the light. Some say that if you listen closely on Monday evenings, you can still hear the gentle murmuring of voices, even long after the shop has closed. The sound of stitches pulling through fabric, of quiet laughter and gentle secrets shared. The magic of Mend Mutter Mondays still tucked into the seams of Widdersham. And should you ever find yourself holding something torn, be it cloth or something closer to the heart, there's always a stool waiting for you at a Tog Hem. Just bring your story and something worth stitching.